If everybody here for the BR Sub Education could please take a seat. We call this Budget Review Subcommittee on Education meeting to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Senator Neal, Senator West, Representative Baker, Representative Bojanowski,
Here.
Representative Bowling, Representative Brown,
Here.
Representative Kleins,
Here.
Representative Truitt, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Representative Bray, Representative Petrie, Representative Lewis, Representative McCool,
Here.
Representative Tipton, Senator Rawlings, Representative Riley, Chair Banta.
Present. Okay. We do not have a quorum, so we're not going to acknowledge the minutes until next time. And the first item on the agenda today is regarding research on teacher compensation. Do you mind introducing yourselves for the record? And then we will continue. Thank you.
Yes, my name is John Guerin.
Make sure your light is very green. Press the talk button.
Well, there we go. Okay, my name is John Guerin.
And John is a professor emeritus at the University of Kentucky.
And I'm also a scholar at the Bluegrass Institute.
And I'm Paul Coombs, emeritus professor of economics, University of Louisville.
Okay. Thank you. When you're ready, go ahead and tell us what you got.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for inviting us here. I'm going to start doing a good bit of the talking, but Dr. Coombs will weigh in as appropriate. This is some research that Dr. Coombs and I have engaged in for quite some time. A lot of it is in conjunction with the Bluegrass Institute, which has kindly helped publicize and promote or make people aware of this work. Both of us are working pro bono. We are both, as you can see here, retired economics professors who just think this is a very important thing for the Commonwealth. And what this work does is this work on teacher compensation is part of a work that develops a historical record of many important trends and many important items regarding education, K-12 education in Kentucky. We tried as best we could to go back to 1990, the beginning of the Kentucky Education Reform Act, and look at data going forward from that. We are not able to go back that far in some of the data series, but we did the best we could. So what we're going to do is talk about teacher compensation, which is a paper that Dr. Coombs and I did, and it is available on the Bluegrass Institute website. We're also going to talk about contextual issues here, because teacher compensation occurs in a context of other things going on in education. So we're going to put it in context to several other things that we have looked at. So I guess we'll just start things off with teacher compensation then. So let's see here. I guess we'll just scroll down one. There we go. So this is a plot of, I didn't go there. Somehow it's not changing. Do I need to put this on? Maybe I need to put this on presentation mode. Okay. Let's see here.
It scrolls here, but it doesn't scroll there.
That looks more like it. Okay. All right, let's try to see what happens. Okay, there we go. Thank you. This is a chart from 2005 and 2006 forward through 23-24 school year on average classroom teacher salaries. And the blue line is just what you get year to year without adjusting for inflation, and the upper red line or orange line is after adjustment for inflation. And as you can see here, they've fallen in the last decade or so, although there's a bit of an uptick here at the end. This is some piece of information I think that's fairly widely known. Now, we started at 2005 and 2006 for this because of this data for the next slide, and this is on so-called on-behalf payments per classroom teacher in Kentucky public schools. As many of you probably know, or maybe perhaps all of you know, the on-behalf payments are payments made by state taxpayers, state government, on behalf of teachers, contributions to the pension plan made by the state, as well as health insurance. And they're quite substantial. And as before, the blue line shows the current the dollars figures at the time, and the orange line is the inflation adjusted figures. Now, while as you saw in the previous slide, that inflation adjusted teacher salaries fell by, what was it? I think it was 7.1%. These have gone up very substantially. What's the number? Over 60, let's see, after inflation, over 61% from the base down here. Does this show up on the screen? My little arrow doesn't show up on the screen, so I'm pointing to things that you can't see, but it's very informative for me. Anyway, that's a 61%. So a big increase in contributions to teacher compensation in the form of a pension and health insurance. As you can see, there's a big uptick there, and that's about 2017 when the legislature began to contribute a lot more to the pension plan. If you add them together, it's like this. The inflation adjusted, of course, is the one that's more informative or more relevant, and that again, this is the previous slide was the reason we began in 2005 and 2006 on this, because we could not get the total so-called on-behalf payments per teacher. That was the earliest year we could get that for district by district. So we began this time series there. So as you can see, if you look at the total teacher compensation, this is again the salary plus the fringe benefits, again adjusted for inflation, has gone up about 10.5% since the beginning here. So, and the average here in 2024 was over 94,000. And I think the previous slide showed that of that, I think it was about 35,000 on average. Was that about 35,000 on average was fringe benefits in the remaining salaries. So a big part of teacher compensation has been fringes, and it has gone up faster than inflation since not every year, as you can see towards the right of the later years. It hasn't gone up every year, but in general the trend is pretty substantially upward. Now, we're going to turn to some, let's see, what's this next slide? This is Jefferson County and Fayette County, two largest school districts in the state. We thought it would be worth looking at these. And on the left is Jefferson County, which the total per teacher compensation is $118,000. It's up over 21% since 2006. And Fayette's $112,000, up 31%. So those are both higher levels of pay, which I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Larger cities do pay more. But the increases have been much more substantial as well than in the state as a whole. Now, this is some context. And in fact, we're going to put, a lot of this is going to be somewhat related to teacher pay, but we're putting it in context. And what we've got here is some bars showing the increase, the percentage increase from 2006 to, this stops at 2023. We didn't have time to add 24 to this chart, but this tells us the big picture. As the context here, as you can see here, as we talked about, teacher salaries dropped over this time period, inflation adjusted by 7.1%. Total teacher compensation, however, rose by 10.5%, but that still is much, much smaller than the inflation adjusted per pupil funding increase over this period of 40.5%. So this again is a figure. We're going to come back to that here in a couple of minutes, but that includes, that's federal, state, and local funds all put together per pupil, divided by average daily attendance adjusted for inflation. It's gone up a little over 40%. So even though teacher compensation has gone up, some of salary and fringes, not nearly as much as total funding. Another contextual piece of information for this is the growth in staffing compared to the change in average daily attendance. And again, this is from 93-94 school year to 22-23. And again, these are somewhat dependent on starting and ending points, dependent on data availability. And the number of teachers has gone up about 15%. The teacher-pupil ratio fell at the early first part of this data that we have here, about 15.5 pupils per student to 13.1. So it's somewhat of a decline there. And that we did have an overall increase in teachers of about 15.1%. Other staff has grown much more substantially, though, by 23.4%, and in particularly the district staff. This is the staff not in schools, right? This is central administration staff. Over 62% is the growth over this time period. Non-teacher staff to pupil fell from about 13 to about 10. So that's roughly a 30% increase in staff. And during this time period, there's been some ups and downs, but from beginning to end, the average daily attendance is actually down. This is ending in 2023, about 2.7%. So staffing has gone up. Non-teacher staffing has gone up a lot. Teacher staffing has gone up some, and central district staffing in particular has gone up a lot. This is a chart, federal data on this. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but this is the share of teachers out of the total of public school staff. And Kentucky's down here. We're 45th. What is that percent? 43. About 40, yeah, 43, a little over 43%. So less than half of all school staffing in Kentucky are teachers. And as you can see, where Kentucky is very, very low in terms of its rankings across states in that regard. And this is this is federal data, so it only goes through 2022, and this is an average over several years there in 19 to 2022. More context. This has to do with spending and test performance of students. The upper line shows from 1990 forward, the purple line. It shows basically the increase in per pupil funding, inflation adjusted, from 1990 to 2024. So basically, the number at the very end there, the 2.4, indicates that per pupil funding, inflation adjusted, was 2.4 times what it was in 1990 in Kentucky schools. And that's a rise from about 8,200 in 1990 to almost 20,000 in 2024. Again, we're taking inflation out of this. So this is, as I say, fully inflation adjusted. Now, again, to add, this is a further context for what's going on in Kentucky, or further information about what's going on in Kentucky, or what has gone on, is the four lower lines show the National Assessment of Educational Progress test scores for Kentucky, or the NAEP as people call it. And from their earliest testing to the last testing, which was, what was that? I guess that was 2024, I guess, right? I think was the last test given, yes. And as you can see, they didn't all start in the 1990s at the same year, but they've continued on They have continued on. So as you can see here, what is the top one is grade 4 math. It increased by 1.1 times, or an 11% increase. Grade 8 math, 1.05 times higher than it was at its initial test in the 90s. Grade 4 reading, 1.03 times as high, and grade 8 reading is actually lower, 0.98 times as high as it was in its earliest test, which I think in this case was 1998. These are NAEP white-black score gaps from the original test in the 1990s, again, different years compared to the 2024 test. And as you can see, for each of these, the gap between white students' black NAEP scores and black students' average NAEP scores is in blue. And the last year's, 2024, are in orange. So as you can see, these gaps have all widened pretty substantially since the 1990s. And this is our last slide, and this is again a slide on performance, and this is ACT scores. Kentucky began requiring the ACT and then collecting these data in 2008, separated out by race, not until I think 2012 in terms of the reporting. And as you can see, slight upward tick here from to 2017, and then a decline, as well as it looks like largely unchanged gap between white students and black students in Kentucky. So, Dr. Coombs, I've kind of dominated here the discussion. I wondered if I've glossed over something here that I should have spent some more time
No,
on.
I think you hit all the high points, John. Let's see if we have some questions.
Yes.
Okay, we do have a couple questions. Representative Bojanowski.
Yes, thank you. If you could go to slide 3, I'd like to discuss the numbers there. So I did read your report, and from that report, I've got the list
This
of...
slide?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. I've got the list of state on behalf payments that you have listed. So my first point is, of the 1.929 billion, you list 916 million for employee insurance. That insurance doesn't just cover certified, it covers classified. And so like you said just a minute ago, more than half of our employees are classified.
Well,
So if I could finish,
Sure,
and then I'll take
sure.
your answer. So more than half of the employees are classified. So from my perspective, that number is maybe 50% too high. The second number is the 1.1 billion in contributions to TRS. So we've got contributions that benefit active teachers like me, and we've got contributions that benefit retired teachers. And so from my perspective, this is lumping all of that in together and then applying it as a benefit on behalf of active teachers. Thirdly, there were a number of years that the General Assembly did not pay what they should have paid into the TRS. So what we're doing now is taking those back payments, which is like having a credit card and paying it off, and then saying those expenses are also applied to the teachers and adding it into here. So for contrast, the slide for A&R this afternoon on SEEK, different year, but it lists 458 million as the TRS payment. So part of that money is effectively paying back payments. And so my final point, and then you can respond, is what was your denominator in taking the 1.929 1.929 billion and then coming up with 35,000, because if it's not including all the classified people, then we're misreflecting what the actual numbers are here. Thank you.
So we divided the numbers.
Can you make sure your microphone's on for me?
It's on.
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah. So we divided the total contributions to TRS and to the healthcare system, the health insurance premiums that you mentioned, by everybody who benefited from it, including the non-certified. And so we had an average per staff and applied that to the teachers. So I don't think we've, added in things that didn't go to teachers. And this represents, the other thing I would say is the growth rate would be the same regardless, right? So if the on-behalf payments have grown that dramatically for teachers and for anyone else who benefits from the fringe benefits. So I don't think we've done that. That we've counted people that aren't getting these benefits. We'll go back and check and send you a note if we're wrong, but I don't think we did, because I remember this puzzle. We did this actually back in April, so I'm a little fuzzy on exactly how we did it, but I know we dealt with that issue at some point. I realized that there are other people in TRS, and there's a lot more staff than just teachers, and we dealt with that in some way.
If I may.
Yes, Representative.
So, and I did the math again one more time. Let me do it just once more real quickly. So you've got the 1,929,026,376, and if you divide that by I'm not coming up with a number of teachers that represents the number of teachers there actually are, as compared to the lumping in the extra payments to TRS as a benefit to teachers, as well as the number of classified employees. So I would like clarification on that if you could.
Will do. That's a good technical question. I just can't remember exactly how we did it, but I know we addressed it.
Okay, thank you.
If you could send that to us, we'll make sure everybody gets
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Representative Truitt.
All right, thank you, guys. Obviously, kind of hid here behind the podium, but I'm a math guy. I love data, love it, much like you guys do, and obviously you guys are probably well above my level. But data has a lot of pros. I love data because data doesn't lie. But a negative thing about data is that data can be manipulated. All right? And, it's one of those things that I could take your data that you've got here and I could paint a completely different picture by using different variables and by using different, formulas. When we say that the average teacher salary is $94,000, is very deceiving. All right. I work in a district. I work 240 days. I get stipends for being a principal. I do not make $94,000 a year. And I've been doing it for 26 years. So to say that we have teachers in our schools or in our state making $94,000 a year is completely false. And I understand, I'm not going to tell you that we don't waste money. I agree with you in some instances. I'm not going to say that our district staffs are not bloated. I'm not going to say that. I agree with that too. But when we start saying that we're throwing this money and our teachers are making this much money, that is completely false. Now, could we add all of these TRS funds that we've paid in and assume that that's going to the teachers? Well, I guess we could, but we could do that with anything. So it kind of bothers me just a little bit by looking at this, because this data to me really has no benefit other than the fact that you're saying that we're spending a lot of money in education and maybe we're not getting the results that we should be getting. And I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I think there's a better way of doing that than saying that we are wasting this money and paying our teachers too much money. In reality, when what's happening is we as a legislature have thrown extra money over the last couple of years to shore up our pension system, which is something I'm glad that we did. So I appreciate the data. I look forward to kind of seeing where some of these formulas came from, and so I look forward to seeing that Representative Bojanowski asked for. But I want to continue to work on this. I think there's work to be done. I'm glad you've collected some data. It does bother me that the average daily attendance has dropped almost 3%. I think that's a valid piece of data that we can look at. What could we do? I like the fact that you said that our central office staff, our district staff, has improved or has increased more than our teachers and our classified employees. I agree there too. We need to look at that. But when we start trying to twist it to say that, our teachers are making $94,000 a year, I just completely disagree with that. Thank you.
Well,
Let me respond, John.
Yeah.
Yes.
we're both eager to respond to that.
We didn't intend to say that the average teacher salary was $94,000 a year. I think in the first slide, I think it was $58,000 a year, and in fiscal year 25, I think it went up to $61,000. So that's the salary that you're referring to, and obviously, no teacher in your district is going to make $94,000. It's going to be more in that range of $45,000, $50,000. What we're saying is, when someone applies for a job and we hear about teacher shortages, they look at the compensation package, not just the base salary. And when they see health insurance premiums are largely paid by taxpayers and they're fairly generous, and that the pensions are quite generous, and the retirement is fairly young, right? And these pensions are paid out over many years, then that becomes something that's very attractive to someone looking for a job. They don't just look at the base salary, they look at the benefit package. And so this is maybe the first attempt. Maybe we didn't do it exactly right, and we'll get back to you on that. But it's important when you have discussions about labor supply and demand and how attractive the profession is and shortages and so on, to not just look at the base salary, which is all you read about in the newspaper or any media. You should, we're economists and we know labor economics, and you need to look at the whole benefit package. And best we can tell, these on behalf payments that you all legislate authorized are very huge and translate into fairly generous and growing faster than inflation piece of the compensation package. So I don't know if it's 30,000, 35,000 or something like that, that they are getting mainly in health insurance and in contributions for pensions, which they will receive when they retire.
Let me add. Could I add a comment?
Yes, please.
Well, I think we, in our report, and this is much more brief than our full report, we actually document carefully what the data that we have and what goes into this. Obviously, the salary data is from the Kentucky Department of Education, as well as the on-behalf data. So we basically took the on-behalf that goes to personnel and divided that by what we believed was the correct number of folks who that is contributed on behalf of, and that's how we came up with the number. So that is the number. We didn't make that up. It's not a fake number, a false number. So you may want to criticize our method, and that's fine. We can discuss that, but it's not a false number. Secondly, we have not said anything one way or the other about whether we think teachers are overpaid or underpaid. This is purely, at this point, all we discussed is the historical record. And so we've not really put any recommendations or anything else in this presentation.
Okay.
Real quick follow-up, please.
Representative Truitt, follow up.
All right. So, and once again, I appreciate the data. I do. So, we're talking about the on behalf. We're talking about the extra. We're talking about the fringe. So, are we saying that where does teachers fringe, all right, or school staff employees fringe compared to other occupations? Is 30,000 or 35,000 or 40,000? Is that excessive, or is that comparable, or is it less than other occupations? Because that's something I would like to know. You all being economists, you probably have an idea. Is that a question?
Yes, sir. We did not look at that, and that's a great question. There are data by industry on salaries versus full compensation, and we'll try to send that to you. I know how to do that. In different studies I've done of different industries, it's generally in the 25% range, the fringe benefit above salaries. This is higher, so I think the benefits are fairly rich for teachers in Kentucky compared to other industries, but we can be more precise and tell you how much.
Thank you.
Data would be wonderful. Thank you very much. And we have Chairman Tipton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had to go back to the iPad so I could see a little better. I think this is an interesting conversation. We often talk about teacher salary, but we seldom talk about compensation. The Southern Regional Education Board a few years ago did a comparison of all the states in the SREB region based on teacher compensation, and they looked at all these factors. And I think if members have a chance, you can go to the SREB website and look that up. I think that'd be some interesting conversation. As a business owner, and I've been a business owner, I've employed people. When I employ a person, they've got their salary, but when I factor in my cost of doing business, I've also got to factor in the cost of any benefits that are associated. That's my cost for that employee. And I think what you're trying to get at here is for each teacher position, ask you how much is it costing the taxpayers of Kentucky to employ that teacher? Right. And that is a combination of salary. That is a combination of the health benefits, the life insurance, all the other benefits that are provided to them. And it's no doubt in that one slide you showed, and it goes back to the 2016 budget session when we appropriate $973 million to additional money for the TRS system for unfunded liability that hadn't been funded since I think 2008 was about the time when they stopped that funding. Now, if my memory is correct, at that time the amount of money they didn't fund was around $70 million. In the last 10 years, we have more than offset those years that we didn't fund that unfunded liability. And I've been on Public Pension Oversight Board for a lot of years, and whether or not it's past teachers, current teachers, to me the real problem is faulty assumptions were made for years by TRS. And I think there was a reason for that, because if they had more accurately assigned the correct assumptions, when I talk about assumptions, I'm talking about assumed interest rate, I'm talking about life expectancy and things like that, it would have cost the state more money in years past. And my personal belief, it was politically motivated to keep those costs down, so it didn't look so bad. But now we're left in this situation. In the August meeting of PPOB, TRS tells us that the cost what they're going to ask the General Assembly, the taxpayers to fund, in this current biennium is $3 billion. That's going to $3.5 billion. That's going to be the request, an additional $500 million. And I've looked at the numbers the TRS actuaries have put out, and the total cost for TRS for the state in about 2042, 2043 is $2.6 billion in 1 year. Now, we get about 2047, we get that unfunded liability paid off, it goes to $878 million. Now, it doesn't do any good to point fingers about how we got here. We're here, and we've got to deal with it, and the only way to get out of it is to pay the bill. And and I just come out of a meeting with Chair Petrie talking about budget issues. To me, the millstone hanging around the neck of Kentucky taxpayers is our pension obligations. Until we get those paid off, we're going to struggle with budget. It's just that is the reality of it. I wish it wasn't, but we have to be responsible and pay this bill, because if we don't pay the unfunded liability, I am confident it'd go to, if the system ran out of money, it'd go to court and they would direct the General Assembly. First thing out of your budget is pay that pension obligation. So we got to go ahead and pay it. But I think it is fair to recognize that there are other costs associated with hiring a teacher besides the salary. And I think what this data shows, it's reflective of that. And to me, the most telling thing of all this is the additional funds per pupil, but it's the number of staff. Back in September, we had Fayette County. Dr. Liggins was in here to talk about their situation. So we looked at their staffing numbers over time. We've seen a dramatic increase in staffing, and a lot of it is district staff and support staff. So I think those are some of the questions that our local school districts need to be asking, that we need to be asking. Are these staff necessary? Are they actually benefiting? And I've studied NAEP scores. I've studied KSA scores. They're not pretty. And it's not just Kentucky. It's a national trend. And we're doing things here in Kentucky. We're trying to improve early literacy. We're trying to improve early numeracy, things to try to help our students succeed in the future. And we have to be strategic in our investments, because the reality is we're going to have limited resources to allocate to all these things. So we have to be very strategic about where we're getting the best returns for our investment. And you got between education and Medicaid and jails, you got a big part of our budget already tied up, and that leaves very little to allocate to these other things. So, Madam Chair, I wasn't meaning to preach, but I got in the spirit.
I saw the spirit. I let it go.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. But I do have one question. On your fringe benefits, I noticed that you included debt service on construction project. I wanted to clarify. I saw that on that. Could you clarify about what all was actually included in those fringe benefits?
Sure. So, if you had got our white paper that we did back in March or April, it's got a table that shows you all the components of the on behalf, and debt services in there, and a whole lot of other things. We took all of that out. We only looked at the things related to compensation. So it was just the health insurance, the pensions, and I think life insurance, but just things that are tied to payroll of teachers and other staff that qualify.
Okay, and we have Senator Wise. No, we don't.
Thank you.
West. I'm sorry, West.
Close enough. I get that all the time.
Started with a W.
I feel sorry for Senator Wise. Yes, I was looking around the committee room today, and this will happen to you eventually. It appears that we're the two old guys sitting here that have been here maybe a decade. And yeah, sorry, I didn't include George in the group, but we've been here. We've seen a lot of things, and I came into the General Assembly in 2015. And was on appropriations revenue in 2016. And I apologize in advance. I'm going to preach a little bit. I don't try not to, but
Seems to be church.
I'll keep it brief. I bristle a little bit at the idea that the pension contributions aren't enhancing or affecting new teachers as much as they should. Our bond rating was decreasing over time. And when I came in 2016, we were teetering as a state. We're 49th in the United States. We were ahead of Illinois in pension liabilities. Not a place you want to be. And so TRS came to us and they said, give us $500 million each year over 30 years. It'll take care of the pension liability, no problem. And we had these huge unfunded liabilities. But the reason, what I want to key on is the reason we had the unfunded liabilities. Part of the reason is the legislature had not funded the liabilities properly. And there was a period about 8 years there where the TRS would ask for a certain amount and we wouldn't give them that full amount. We would just give a partial payment. And that's true. And that, I think that was $1 billion or something of that along those lines. But you have all these other factors that contributed to the liability. You had the stock market crash. You had the age of retiring teachers. You had poor investment decisions. You had the assumed rate of returns that Chair Tipton talked about. And so what happened is, as a whole, they were 65% funded. And so what that meant is 1 out of every 3 teachers did not have a pension. Okay. And over time, that hasn't changed a lot. So to this day, we are still tremendously underfunded as a system, even with these huge contributions that we've made. And so what happened is we gave them $500 million each year. The very next budget, we need another $120 million annually. And this has gone up over time. And so my main point is, I could sit here and make the argument that these new monies that we continue to put in from the general fund are going directly to teachers that are currently in the system, because the system is still only 65% funded. So that's the main point I want to make is, that's not what jumped out to me. What jumped out to me in this presentation is, over time, the administrative staffing numbers have skyrocketed. And a lot of money that should have been going to teachers, more teachers, better paid teachers, has gone elsewhere. And if you were cynical, you might say that some of these administrative staffing positions have been set up so that some teachers, some staff can get their high 3 at a higher level. Possibility. But my question is, could you comment on the funding of the KTRS and how, even though we've contributed these large sums and they've been increased over time and they're going to increase further, a lot of that money does go to teachers who are in the system 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now. Could you comment on that?
I got a good education there from you. I'm no expert on TRS. I do think that a beginning teacher knows that this pension is part of their pay package, and they will receive it when they retire after whatever, I don't know the exact age, 28 years, something like 25, 30 years. You can retire in your mid-50s as a teacher, and there's very few professions where you can do that. So that makes it very expensive for taxpayers to provide that guarantee. So I think that's the main takeaway we have here on behalf or the TRS. I would also say that, there's a lot of folks around Frankfurt that have jobs that put together these spreadsheets that John and I use all the time on salaries and staffing and the on behalf, the revenues and expenditures per district. We look at those all the time. So there's a lot of people in Frankfurt here that have the raw materials, but what John and I noticed is nobody seems to be putting it all together over time and across different dimensions. So that's why we decided to do this for what it's worth. Hopefully it added some value. But my point is, perhaps some folks in state government could do this for you and answer Tina's questions and others very precisely, and bring in the TRS people and the Kentucky Department of Education folks, and put it. And also, isn't there an LRC committee of some kind?
Office of Educational Accountability,
That would
I
be a
believe,
nice
is
place.
which you guys, I guess, have control over, right? This is a
Yes.
legislative.
I have asked for that, believe it or not.
Oh, well,
and I
good
kind
for
of
you.
get the deer in the headlight look, and it doesn't seem like people want to put all those working parts together.
Well, yeah, I've seen the book as well, and there's a lot of data there, but it doesn't seem to be all in, I guess I'm biased because I like the way I did it, but it doesn't have this long-term kind of comparable trends over time kind of stuff.
Senator, did you have a follow-up?
Quick question.
way
The main
Dr.
part of your
Coombs and I did it.
presentation wasn't to say, you're not attempting to say that Kentucky teachers are overpaid. The main purpose of your presentation is to show salary and compensation packages over time, what they are. Your main point is to give us the data, right? And to show it, give us the tools we need to make appropriate decisions.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to chime in with a question. This could be hypothetical, but is there, when someone retires, they have the opportunity to choose a retirement plan that would go to their spouse should they cease to exist? Okay. Would that shore up the retirement if we stopped allowing it to go to people? I'm just asking as economists. I mean, that's a wonderful perk, but when I signed on to be a teacher, nobody said that I had to take care of my husband if I get hit by a bus. So did you look at any of those data, like how many spouses are on a retirement of a deceased teacher or anything like that?
No, I mean, John and I, neither one. I think I can speak for
I hope
John.
I didn't give you any ideas. I just,
Well, you mentioned that what you just said is obviously a financial liability that's built into the pension problem, right? So maybe it's a perk that makes it more attractive for teachers. I don't know. No, but John and I have not waded into the details of the TRS system by any means. We're looking high level.
The Bluegrass Institute does have some older studies on teacher as well as the other employees' pension systems. And if you want, I can find the person who's done those and forward those to. They get into the issues of eligibility and some issues of the benefit formula. Apparently, has also been changed in the past, making it more lucrative when the money was there right then, but it's not expected to be there in the future. So if you want, I can find the people or contact the people who have authored those studies and get that information. I think it does get into some of this. They were last written, I think, at the time of the late 20-teens, but I think it's still perhaps pertinent. I can see that you guys get those if you would like.
we like to read.
Okay.
So, and I said,
I will do that.
Representative Klein, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Yes, Representative McCool.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this kind of goes along with what Senator West was also referring to. In one of your slides, you had the growth of staff and faculty. I think you said teachers was like 15%. Administration, which seems like it's very top heavy according to this study, is like 62%. What should be the driving force in the increase of any of these would be students. So do we have an increase in students? So we have an increase in, you're saying no. So you have an increase of cost, but the mechanism to help pay for that cost is getting smaller. So just comment, please. Thank you.
The actual path of number of students it did go up some in the 90s and kind of up and down in the 2000s, and if you look now, it's actually lower than it was in the early 90s. But so the staff to pupil ratio went up a lot during the 1990s and the early 2000s. The teacher to pupil ratio, did I get that right? No, went down.
Backwards.
Went down. The more staff relative to pupils went down a lot in the 90s and early 2000s, and the teachers some. It went down some, and we did have a lot of spending increase in the last decade, or a little more than a decade. The total staff to pupil ratio and teacher to pupil ratio is kind of stabilized. But yet, if you look at the funding chart, funding has still gone up. So in the 90s and early 2000s, some of that funding increase that we experienced was due to increased staffing. I'm going to go to this slide here. This slide. Some of this funding increase in the 90s and 2000s was due to increased staffing, non-teacher staffing, as well as administrative staffing. But the dip here is the Great Recession, and funding went down then. But it has continued to climb since then, even though staffing ratios haven't they remained low, but they haven't changed. So I can't remember what your question was, other than me commenting on it. But we haven't seen much of a change in if you look at sort of the basic skills test given by the Department of Education, we really haven't seen much change there.
Okay, Madam Chair, just one little comment.
Yes.
My guess is, instead of talking about the student increase, would justify the increase
Right.
in teachers and administration. And honestly, I would hope that we would increase for the teachers, because it would lower the class size and allow the teachers to do a better job. There is a benefit in that. I truly believe that. But it seems like we're going to have to become more lean with our administrative side, or whatever it is. If it's increased 62%, that funding could has very well gone to teachers' salaries increase as well. So maybe we've gotten too top heavy. Just a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for this conversation. I'm sure it's not going to start. It just kind of depresses me, because when I signed my contract to teach, the gentleman that was in charge of our finances, when he hired me and I signed the bottom line, said, "The best part about this job is retirement." And I said, I was 24 years old and I didn't believe that. And I still don't believe that. I think the best part of the job is working with kids and doing your job. But hopefully we'll overcome that retirement gig. So thank you very much. Yes.
I was just going to ask, I haven't kept up with this day to day, but have you all moved more now towards a defined contribution system instead of a defined benefit system? In other words, get away from a guaranteed pension and more to a contribution where the teacher can manage their investment account over time. That's what I did. I have no pension.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's the tier 3 teachers that are coming in.
Okay.
They manage their own pension. It's kind of like what my husband said: when I quit, I'm done. It's what you've saved and what you've done.
You can actually do better with that.
Yes.
And it would save your these liability problems that these gentlemen were talking about. It would really address those problems financially.
Yeah. He's wanted my pension for a long time, so I agree with you. So, Representative Bojanski, did you have a follow-up? Oh, no, it's tier 4. Thank you. It's tier 4, not tier 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Okay, and next, if we could have Alicia Sells, Chief Executive Officer of We Lead. If you could come up and make sure your lights are on and introduce yourselves for the record.
Get my PowerPoint up here just a second. Got it? Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Alicia Sells, and I'm the CEO of We Lead CS, which is Kentucky's virtual computer science career academy. With me today is Chris Schmidt, who is the Vice President of Technology Products at Fifth Third Bank. And as Kentuckians, we're honored to have the opportunity to share with you why we think the General Assembly's investment in We Lead CS is one of the smartest workforce investments you can make. Kentucky has a significant challenge, and We Lead CS provides an opportunity to meet it. The National Skills Coalition reports that more than 92% of open jobs in Kentucky, or in America, now require technology skills. Nearly half require what they call definitely digital skills, things like coding in Python or programming for electronic health record systems like Epic, which is used in virtually every healthcare organization in the nation. And the demand is growing at a staggering pace. Lightcast, which is the national leader in workforce analytics, reported last month that more than half of all tech jobs now require AI skills. That's a 98% increase in 1 year from the data that they looked at last year in job postings. And it is not just about the tech industry. Lightcast data for Kentucky's specific job openings show every major Kentucky industry, manufacturing, healthcare, logistics, agriculture, even retail, now depend on computing skills to stay competitive. And across the Commonwealth, we have 3,400 open computing jobs each month with average salaries of over $80,000. And many go unfilled for months at a time, which is the leading indicator, according to Lightcast, of a technology skills gap that is limiting Kentucky's growth. So where does the gap begin, and how is We Lead CS closing it? The gap starts early because far too few Kentucky students have access to computer science courses and career pathways. Data science jobs grew 285% month over month, yet no Kentucky high school offers a data science career pathway or intro to data science course. We Lead CS will launch both next year. Cybersecurity jobs grew more than 200% last year, but only 336 students statewide were enrolled in a cybersecurity course. We Lead CS added 57 in just 1 year. And until now, no Kentucky high school has offered an AI course. In fact, our research tells us no public high school in the nation is offering AI literacy courses for high schools. We are forming an employer advisory board of Kentucky business leaders to help us guide the curriculum and launch what we believe will be the first AI literacy course for high school students in the nation. The General Assembly invested in this work, and so the most important question for me to answer is what's your return on investment? A talent pipeline full of workers with definitely digital skills is where your investment pays off, not just for students, but for Kentucky's economy. The National Skills Coalition found that workers with even one digital skill earn 23% more, and those with 3 or more digital skills earn 45% more. For our employers, it's a competitive edge. Companies that rely on advanced digital skills earn 168% higher annual revenue and are 44% more likely to have steady year-over-year growth. In other words, digital skills drive higher wages, higher productivity, and higher tax revenue. When we invest in computer science education, we're investing into Kentucky's long-term economic strength. We Lead CS is scaling efficiently and effectively, and we're ready to do more. In just 1 year, we grew from 68 students in 5 schools to 225 students in 26 schools. There are already 13 districts ready to offer the program next year, and we have not even formally launched recruitment for 26-27. A 420% increase in schools we serve in 1 year is a convincing indicator school leaders in Kentucky are ready to be partners with you in workforce development. And school districts do have skin in the game. They are paying $250 per student for We Lead CS to teach their students dual credit courses and $500 a student for year-long high school credit courses. We're providing students with paid virtual work experience through our Jumpstart program, and we're helping students gain real-world experience and develop an understanding of what it will take to succeed in the workforce. We're also challenging our employer advisory board to help us design paid virtual summer work experiences for students, real-world work opportunities that students can do from home, eliminating barriers that prevent rural students from preparing for high-demand jobs. So I jumped ahead to my slide here, which is the ask, and it is the season for asking for funding in Frankfort, I know. And it is to make another strategic investment in Kentucky's future with We Lead CS. For the 26-28 biennium, we're requesting an increase in our state appropriation from $3 million over the biennium to $5 million over the biennium, or $2.5 million in each year of the biennium. With that investment, our plan is to grow by 500 students, 250 students each year, and we'll employ the teachers that we need to serve them. We'll expand our AI course and computer science career pathways statewide, and we'll connect even more students directly with Kentucky employers like Chris. We Lead CS is not just an education initiative. It's a workforce development strategy that prepares students for high-wage, high-demand jobs, many of which they can do remotely while staying in and contributing to their home communities. I invited one of Kentucky's leaders in the tech sector to join me today to share his perspective on the value of your investment in We Lead CS. Chris Schmidt, Vice President of Technology Products at Fifth Third Bank, has been my partner in developing We Lead CS since we began piloting the program 5 years ago now. And Chris, I'd like to ask you if you would share with the members of the committee some of your perspective on how you see We Lead CS playing a role in developing the talent you need on your team.
Great. Thanks, Alicia. So I'm a 26-year information technology veteran, a lifelong Kentucky resident, Northern Kentucky, a product of public education in Kentucky in both high school, and I went to University of Kentucky to get my computer science degree there. So I've seen things from the front line, both as a participant and an employer of technology students. Another hat that I wear, I'm the co-chair of an organization. It's a nonprofit called Inter Alliance. We're centered in Greater Cincinnati, and we serve students in Northern Kentucky and the Greater Cincinnati area. Along with that, I, as part of my day job, I see students each day from the college level as we're recruiting from Northern Kentucky University and the University of Kentucky, students that have come through that pipeline as we staff for internships and co-op opportunities. And what I can tell you, being on the front lines and dealing with students from both the Ohio side and the Kentucky side, is we just are not historically giving the resources to those Kentucky students. The Ohio students are steps ahead of where the Kentucky students are today. You'd be hard pressed to find students coming out of our high schools that have had the same level of resources. The ones that we do find and employ are the ones that are self-taught. The ones that are going outside our educational systems to find the tools to be able to learn and to be equipped to be in the jobs that Alicia was talking about earlier. The industry is still hungry for AI native information technology professionals. You'd be hard pressed to walk into any technology firm that has enough programmers. So you walk in today and say you could give me 5 free programmers, I'd absolutely take it. But what AI has given us is the ability to give those programmers tools to be more productive and to allow us to compete in the Midwest with companies that are hiring programmers out west or in the East Coast, which has been phenomenal. So I would say the demand here is only increasing with the recent disruption of the H-1B visa program, limiting the access to international workers in the information technology field, and with quantum computing on the horizon, we're only seeing a demand for information technology expertise increasing.
We had an opportunity last week to have dinner with some of the leading tech employers in Northern Kentucky, and we had a great conversation about AI, which is that it is now at the point where, for a lot of IT companies, there's AI software that enables them to do the work of the first 2-year employee. So the question that a lot of employers with then are grappling with, how do we bring in employees in that 3rd or 4th year of experience when we've not been able to train them in year 1 or 2? And it all boiled down to that night, the conversation, and a conversation Chris and I have had many times about training workers to be confident analysts of the work product of AI. That sometimes AI is not infallible. It's not going to ever be infallible. And so it's how we give kids confidence to understand the fundamental functions of AI, to understand the fundamental functions of computer science, and to really take those skills, whether they decide to go into the computer science field or into other sectors where they need that work, and apply those skills. So, Madam Chair, that's our presentation for today. I just want to thank you and the General Assembly for investing in this pilot program. We've had a fantastically successful first 2 years, and we would like to continue growing the program with your support.
Thank you. And I see a question from Chairman Tipton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alicia, I'm not going to preach for you.
That's okay, Mr. Chairman.
But I do have a question for you and Chris both.
Okay.
I think you heard my earlier comments. I'm anticipating a very tight budget.
Yes, sir.
So my question for Alicia, my question for you is, do you believe the school districts have capacity, if we're not able to come up with additional funding. Do the school districts have capacity to pay additional funds to CS leads for their students in your program? Or do you think it's feasible or not?
I'm not sure that we're far enough into the program to go there. I would like to have another year or two to get more established. What I do know is that it is a more viable financial option for districts to pay We Lead CS than it is to hire a teacher. And I'm probably the one who's the oldest one in the room up here in terms of working on these issues of teacher pay since the early 90s. And it is a lot cheaper for a district to pay We Lead CS than it is for them to hire a teacher with a skill set, because we offer 5 pathways. It's hard to find a teacher to do that. So it's always been my goal that we would increase that over time, Mr. Chairman. And so I think we're early in that process right now to increase that much, but we certainly are happy to talk about that with the General Assembly.
All right, now I've got a question for Chris. And I'm going to ask you to speak on behalf of business owners in general. Business owners obviously are going to benefit from these students who have these skills. Do you believe the business community is willing to put skin in the game and help to pay the cost of training these students to get them where especially if they had a commitment, you had a commitment from them to be employed for a period of time?
Yeah, I could speak to how I've seen it happen on the Ohio side, right? So there's a private government partnership. We do internships in the summer where the employers are paying a percentage of that, and the state actually pays a percentage of that. And the progress we've seen from that program has been amazing. So I think it's always going to be a partnership. The companies and budget time for the companies as well. So you see the same sort of trends of what are we getting next year versus what do we see in 10 years. But the investment of companies like Procter & Gamble, General Electric in the Cincinnati area to invest in these students in these early programs has already showed successful.
Well, I would just encourage all of you to continue to explore these possibilities. Obviously, I think it's a very important program. It's a very needed program for the future. We're just in tight budget times now. So I think we have to look at everything, put everything on the table. So I hope we can work something out for you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and Representative Bojanowski.
Thank you. So we had a conversation about this topic at the Southern Education Board meeting a couple weeks ago. And one of the thoughts I had is, our older employees, the ones that need the training most, because the thought is our kids are digital natives, right? They are all over computers and so forth. And their response to me was that they don't have that training in how to even use Excel or, some of the digital things you need to do to just work in the workplace. Is that the same thing you're finding? I mean, kids have such a good aptitude with all things digital, but are they missing core skills that they need to have in the workforce?
You want to take
Yeah, absolutely. I interface with these students on the daily, right? I just got back from recruiting trips at our universities. I feel like the digital native example is in a level superficial, right?
Okay.
The depth of understanding the foundational knowledge is what's really needed to develop this technology doesn't naturally come if there's not an investment into going deeper into the standard skills that you mentioned in your slides around Java and Python. You're not going to get that sitting on the couch watching TikTok. It just doesn't happen. I'm seeing these students and have them come through with superficial skills. As far as the adult education, I think that's widely available, right? It's I'm consistently having to reskill myself as probably someone I would describe in that population you were saying is an older worker trying to keep pace with technology. And to do that with the foundation of skills I've gotten through deep educational, so I got a master's degree and a bachelor's degree. That foundation allows me to quickly get back upskilled into things, Excel would be an easy one, but deeper technologies as far as AI and so forth, it comes after that foundation's been established. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and pardon me for if I missed this. How many districts in Kentucky are using you right now?
26.
26.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Seeing no further questions or comments, may let's see, our next meeting is going to be November 5th, and same time, same room. And do we have an emotion to adjourn?
Madam Chair,
Oh,
I have an announcement.
okay.
It's in order.
Yes.
I got to find it on my phone, sorry. This is from EKU. There is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., there's a boxed lunch available, and there's a forum panel discussion on health care. So everyone here is invited.
Okay. Thank you.